Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson. We're going to begin a new study today. We're going to take some time to look at three Psalms, two by David, one by Moses, which are connected to each other, I believe, and comment on each other. And we're going to be looking at Psalm 23, Psalm 90, and Psalm 103. These three Psalms together um, are taken together are very instructive for us. Moses and David both are figures who prefigure Jesus Christ himself. Deuteronomy 18, verse 13, the Messiah is a prophet who's going to come like Moses. And we can think about the variety of ways that is true about Jesus. Most clearly because he leads us to the promised land, and then the connection between Jesus and David are direct. He's descended from David. His throne is David's throne, and he's the answer to a covenant that God made with David to that his line would never end, that his throne would be eternal, and of course that is fulfilled in Jesus. And of course the messianic covenant, or excuse me, the Mosaic covenant that was delivered to the God's people through Moses is fulfilled in Jesus Christ as well and brought to completion. So both these men have a unique connection to the Messiah who will come after them. Uh, we want to look at Psalm 23 as a song that really expresses David's view of his relationship with God and the relationship that anyone can have with God if they are God's people and the sheep of God's pasture. Psalm 90 does that too. It really does explain the way Moses saw himself in relationship to God. Psalm 90 is not just a personal song. In fact, mostly it is a national song where God's people are crying out to God, or Moses is crying out to God on behalf of God's people for God's own forgiveness, God's own tolerance, God's own deliverance. And in that way, it's different from Psalm 103. From Psalm 23, but it is very much like Psalm 103 because Psalm 103 is also a song about the individual and the individual's relationship with God, but also the nation's relationship with God, humanity's relationship with God. Psalm 90 and Psalm 103 are so closely, tightly connected because Psalm 103 quotes Psalm 90 and refers to it multiple times and deals with the exact same set of facts about humanity as a race, humanity as a flawed species before its maker, and yet interprets those or expresses um, the fact of it completely differently based upon the way we see God. And so Psalm 103 is very much a commentary upon and um, a I don't want to say a response to, but it's very much um, comment upon and um, and an encouragement to, maybe we should say, Psalm 90. It's almost as if David in Psalm 103 is putting his arm around Moses and saying, everything you say is true, but listen, it's not as bad as you painted it, because the God we serve loves us. And so there's an extremely close connection between Psalm 103, Psalm 190. Now, between Psalm 23 and Psalm 103, we have complete agreement. One is about David personally, the other is about the children of Israel nationally. But David sees God the same way, as someone who takes care of us, who is invested in our success, and who is willing to move heaven and earth, um, to bring about our deliverance. and who treats us not as an angry warden, but as a loving parent. And we're going to see that in both those songs. And anyway, it's a for me. It's a fascinating study. These three psalms which connect together, each with the other individually, and then together as a grouping, they make a nice set of devotional songs to think about together. So this is what we're going to do. We'll talk about Psalm 23. We'll introduce it, look at the text, and really talk about the way David sees God. And then we'll talk about its connection to Psalm 90. And then we're going to look at Psalm 90 and introduce it, look at the text, talk about the way Moses sees God and our relationship with God. And then we'll talk about its connection to Psalm 103. And then we're going to do the same for Psalm 103. And then we'll pull it all together at the end. It'll take us 10 sessions or so to do all of that, but we've introduced the topic. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes today. Tomorrow we're going to open our Bibles to Psalm 23. Thank you for joining me.